The categories are copier, replicator, innovator. So here's how it works. Hey everyone, I'm Marianne Mitchell. Welcome to Whole Artist Mastery. I have so many interesting conversations with mentorship artists who are working with me in individual programs, and they often give me ideas for videos that I want to share with you. So of late, a conversation I've had with a number of different artists who have just actually started working with me, and this conversation often occurs early on in working with somebody. And it has to do with understanding how we think, how our brain is oriented towards the way we go through life, how we make decisions, how we do everything in our lives, because understanding how we think has everything to do with understanding how you make your artwork and also how you go about organizing your artistic practice, your studio, your desk, your life. It's all related. So I'm going to get into that with you today. So I'm going to give you a little background on myself as an artist, as a human being, and the journey that I've been on and continue to be on in terms of understanding how I work in this world, both emotionally, intellectually, physically, spiritually, all of the above as a whole human being. And so I'm going to start with my experience in school. I was a pretty good student, but I found it difficult to follow the rules, only because I think differently, and I was unaware of it at the time. It was nothing to do with wanting to be rebellious or being different. I actually wanted to be just like everybody else. And it was a terribly frustrating thing for me to know that I really wasn't. And so I went off to art school, and this particular way of being in school continued to be part of my learning experience, my scholastic experience. And I went to a very academic art school where I was being taught how to draw, how to paint the model, how to paint still lives. And I found that I was, in my opinion, less good than anybody else in my class. And my teachers were less interested in talking to me because I found it difficult to follow the rules. And they were teachers who were very much about following the rules. And so for many years, I just thought I wasn't a terribly smart person. I didn't test well. And after school, I was so glad to be out of school and continued to paint despite my great wondering why I was painting, but I was never able to give it up. And so over the years and where I am now, what I can offer those who work with me and to those who watch my videos is vast experience of arriving at understanding how to paint, how to make paintings, what I want to say with my work through my own weird, alchemic, whatever word you want to put to it, maybe not weird, maybe fantastic, brilliant, I don't know, way of coming to know what I'm about, how I want to make that come about in the world, what I'm inspired by, and how to make those paintings happen. On the other side of the spectrum is the classic academic painter. This is a person who can look at something and be able to draw it or paint it in such a way that the drawing or the painting or both end up looking exactly like what they're looking at. So artists like this are extremely talented at being able to translate what they are looking at directly on their substrate, whether it's paper and drawing or canvas and paint or whatever. And I always wanted to be just like that because I was unable to be like that in school. And then there are people who are somewhere in between, being able to follow the rules and making up their own rules. And so what I'm going to share with you is a way I've come about understanding 3 different categories that I believe we all fall into. And understanding which category you fall into is very empowering, both in terms of how you run your life and how you make your artwork. The categories are copier, replicator, innovator. So here's how it works. Somebody who's a copier, as I said, is really talented at taking what they see in front of them and recreating it exactly like they see it. It's a real skill to be able to translate what you're looking at and be able to make what you're looking at come out on a piece of paper just like it looks in real life. An analogy for this would be how a person maybe cooks, In other words, there are people who have many recipe books and need to look at a recipe every time they make something. And if a recipe calls for an ingredient that you don't have, then it's really difficult for somebody in this category to substitute because they're unaware of how you do that. I mean, this could be a correlation, maybe not. But in any event, somebody who's really talented at copying is a person who tends to be more of a linear thinker, tends to be able to add things up in sequential order, and is typically really good in school. So the next category is replicator. Now, a replicator would be somebody who has a recipe book and needs the recipe to get started, but then, may substitute an ingredient just because they feel like it, or they want to invent a little more along the way, or they're without an ingredient that the recipe calls for, and so they substitute. This is an artist that needs something concrete, a real thing in front of them, be it a human being, a still life, a landscape, a photograph, to block out what it is that they want to have their painting be about, and also to get the composition set. And then they put the photograph away, or the model is no longer there, and they start to deviate from what's really in front of them and end up inventing to some degree what it is that they're doing. The third category is innovator. Now, an innovator most likely may not even own a cookbook. An innovator takes what they see around them and makes something different, or it comes through more of a non-linear alchemic process inside, and takes longer for an innovator to come up with either a composition or a solution to a problem. Typically, innovators are less linear in the way they think. They're more of what I call a constellation thinker. Constellation thinker is somebody who takes disparate pieces of information and thinks about it for a while, ruminates on what's going on, and then ultimately comes up with a solution that's born out of something that is less obviously concrete. So just to recap, a copier is somebody who can look at something in front of them and draw it exactly like what they see and have it come out on the piece of paper or on the canvas with paint, as though it's this very realistic object that you can touch. People in this category tend to be more linear in the way that they go about thinking and organizing their life. They're really good organizers. A replicator is somebody who has something concrete to get started, but then lets go of the object that's in front of them or their photograph and goes on to invent beyond that, what I would call an armature, something that gets them started. People in this category tend to be both linear and maybe a little non-linear as well. Then the innovator is somebody who creates something out of nothing. And it often takes longer for a painting or a drawing to develop for someone who is starting from an area without a concrete thing in front of them. So now, some of you might be sitting back and scratching your head and saying, I don't know if I agree with Marianne on this. I don't know where I fall on this. I think I'm an innovator, but I'm also a really good linear thinker. And I think that I don't want to be a copier. I want to be an innovator, but I'm not sure I really understand what you're talking about, Marianne. If you feel that way, please put a comment down below. I'd love to hear what you think about this idea. Because in my experience of working with so many people, it's very empowering for artists to have an understanding that, oh, it was okay that I didn't do well in school, or that I'm completely unable to draw the figure as I see it, because I'm more of an innovator. Or if you're somebody who has tried to start an abstract painting out of nowhere and it's really hard for you, that you can live into the fact that you're more of a copier and you need an armature, you need something concrete to get you started. Now, the category of replicator is the largest category because replicators can slide between innovator and copier. There's some replicators that may be more of an innovator. There's some replicators who are more of a copier. In my experience, an innovator is incapable of being a copier, and a copier is incapable of being an innovator. Now, what's really important about this idea is for you to begin to think about how you think and how you go through the world, and in terms of school, in terms of work, in terms of relationships, in terms of your paintings, and begin to understand which category you may fall into. Because once you have that understanding, you can start to accept that you're that way of a thinker, and then live into creating artwork in a way that aligns with who you are. So that if you're truly a copier, you can let go of being frustrated that you're completely unable to innovate in abstraction. And if you're an innovator, you can let go of feeling bad about the fact that you're unable to draw the human figure and make it look like the human figure. When I finally came to this resolution, or to this understanding for myself, it was hugely empowering. I now accept the fact that I'm really an innovator, and that that's okay, because I make beautiful abstract paintings that come from nowhere. And often they take a really long time to come to resolution. And through this process that I have, this journey that I've been on for so many years, through that journey is how I came to understand what the 4 phases of making an abstract painting are all about. So if you are unaware of what the 4 phases are, I invite you to go to the Whole Artist Mastery website, put your email in, subscribe, and you will get a downloadable PDF that has a bunch of different things that help you, support you in your quest to be a whole artist. One of which is the outline of what the 4 phases are of making abstract art, compositional checkpoints that help you along the way, make sure that your painting is working compositionally, and the Whole Artist Mastery Personal Treasure Hunt, which is one way that you can start to understand how you think, how you feel, and what physical places you most feel comfortable in. So I hope this was helpful. I look forward to hearing whether you agree, disagree, what your experience has been in terms of what category you may fall into. And I really hope that this has been empowering for you in terms of your practice and your artwork. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.